reduction. That's the way it is.
By the time of this interview, Stanley was disabled and no longer mining. He spoke from a black lung clinic not far from his home in Virginia. Stanley was among the thousands of miners sickened in an epidemic resurgence of a disease that health experts say should have been eliminated long ago. He was diagnosed with progressive massive fibrosis, the worst form of black lung.
Because I've seen it too many times coal miners.
Contributions to support programming like our partnership with the Ohio Valley Resource and Kentucky Public Radio, and of course NPR. You're tuning in, you appreciate this special spotlight that the Ohio Valley Resource puts on our communities in Kentucky, Central and Eastern Kentucky, Southern Ohio as well. Issues there that affect our communities as well. Then pick up the phone and call 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org and make your pledge of support during our fall fund drive.
WEKU is supported by the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. Kentuckians with COVID-19 may receive a call from 844-KY-TRACE to identify potential exposure and offer medical care information. 844-KY-TRACE calls are secure and private information will not be requested. Answer the call to help slow the spread of COVID-19.
And call 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org to make a pledge of support to WEKU. Member support is our #1 revenue resource when we look at paying our bills and paying for the programs that you rely on. The number to call is 800-621-8890, or you can give online at weku.org when you click the red donate button. And thank you.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Sasha Pfeiffer.
And I'm Audie Cornish. Facebook wants to be an authority on climate. Today, the social network launched a climate science information center, a central hub for climate facts. Not as straightforward as it may sound.
It'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
That was President Trump yesterday in California, addressing how climate change affects wildfires. We asked Facebook VP of Global Affairs and Communications, Nick Clegg, about what happens when politicians don't accept the science.
Facebook's role is not to tell whoever is elected as President of the United States what they can and can't say within it. No one, including President Trump, and no politician can say things which threaten impending real-world harm, and our policies on hate speech apply to everyone. But when it comes to debate and what we are trying to do, and why we are hopeful that this climate science information center will be very effective, is that it provides a simple, easy to find repository for authoritative information about what is happening to our climate. And our experience with the COVID information hub is that there is a real appetite for people to find out more for themselves.
We have seen misinformation in general spreading when it comes to this issue. And is there anything that Facebook can do more proactively to prevent this misinformation from spreading?
As I say, we do already more than any other company in the industry. No other company partners with 70 plus fact checkers around the world. You know, fact checking is not some sort of light sanction. The suggestion that the only remedy to misinformation, or the only credible remedy to information, is when content is removed, I think overlooks how effective this program of fact-checking can be. You know, removing content is the ultimate sanction, and we confine that to content where we think there is a clear and impending link to real-world harm. So, for instance, this last weekend, we removed content which was circulated, which made claims that far-left groups were responsible for the fires in Oregon. We did so because the police and law enforcement and emergency services told us that these rumors were actually taking their resources away from helping people whose homes were ablaze.
Earlier, you made this comment about the public and politicians, and I do want to come back to it for one more thing, which is that just recently, the Department of Health and Human Services public affairs official, his name's Michael Caputo, used a Facebook live stream to make all kinds of claims against the federal government. Ones that do sound threatening or dangerous, claiming that there were hit squads that were preparing for armed insurrection. How do you refute this? Do you reach out to people who saw the video? Is there anything you can do, or is this in the column of it came from a politician, so it's not our deal to make comment on it?
So I haven't seen the video, so I simply can't comment on the video. The country is going through a highly polarized time with people from all wings of opinion saying things to each other and about each other, not least in the run-up to this highly consequential election. And we have put in place a whole range of guardrails to try and make sure that our platform remains a place for open debate. Sometimes we act swiftly and immediately, sometimes we don't act quickly enough, and then quite rightly people criticize Facebook. But I don't think it would be fair to overlook the huge undertaking which now exists on Facebook, whether it is the millions of fake accounts that are removed every day, the 35,000 people who've been employed to help monitor what goes on our platform.
I don't think I am. I mean, I guess what I want to say is these things aren't disconnected. Here you have a science hub, and here you have someone using Facebook, someone in an official capacity who claims federal government scientists are engaging in sedition. This is going against the, let's call it, good or clean information you're trying to put out on the one hand, and on the other hand, there's a steady stream of this other stuff.
I think it would be unrealistic to imagine that the only thing one is ever going to see on Facebook is material that you feel comfortable or happy about. That's not the nature of the world we live in, and it's certainly not the nature of the highly polarized debate we have in the United States. If that video broke our rules and we didn't act on it, I'm sure that is a legitimate source of criticism. But I think the underlying point you're making is that, yes, one of the reasons for this climate science centre is precisely because good speech is often the most effective antidote to bad speech.
Well, Nick Clegg, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for All Things Considered on WEKU during our Fall Fun Drive. I'm Samantha here with Chef Rita Michael and Wendy Wilkinson in the studio as well this afternoon. We're asking you to call 800-621-8890 or go online to WEKU.org and participate in our Fall Fun Drive. And Rita, it really is up to all of us to participate, how much value that we get from WEKU and in turn how much we want to send in. It's a pretty good system, I think.
It's a wonderful system, and it allows people to participate at whatever level they feel the most comfortable. So if you have a lot of resources, you can pledge a lot of money, and if you have a very limited budget, you can also pledge a limited budget. You know why? Because every dollar counts for WEKU, and it's a community-owned radio station. I almost said restaurant. It's a community radio station, and that means that its members help in its programming and help pay for its programming, and that is very, very important. It's not beholden to any giant corporation. It's owned by us. So become a sustaining member today. For $7 a month, you can have a beautiful face mask, and if you up that to $10 a mask, $10 a month, you can have 2 beautiful face masks. But it's really part of how we all participate in our community.
That's absolutely right. If we all do our part, then we could have a fantastic, record-breaking Fall Fun Drive. I know Wendy Wilkinson would be a fan of that. She's tallying up our numbers for the year and our donations and pledges, because every single dollar counts. It's a collective. It all goes to the same pot, and we dole it out to the different bills that we have to pay, the different programs that we have to pay for, and every bit makes a difference.
That's right. Every bit makes a difference. Again, we mentioned this before, but for those of you who are new, who may never heard of Membership Drive, maybe don't know what our funding model looks like, we do receive some money from corporate support partners. We receive some CPB grants and things like that. We do receive a little bit of money from Eastern Kentucky University, but the largest single source of revenue we have for our programming is our members. And as you all know, the economy is changing and has been for a while. Funding goes down. A lot of our corporate support partners have had to step aside for a little bit. They're trying to run their own businesses, or in some cases they're failing. So we're really excited that our current membership pool has just really stepped up to the plate to help to kind of cover some of that and help keep us going. But you know what? We can't live on the same thing over and over. We've got to continue to raise the money to pay for this kind of stuff. Election coverage coming up, more expenses coming in. We've got to continue that revenue. So if you've never given, please give at 800-621-8890 or online at weku.org. That's the number to call. That's the website to go to become a member of WEKU. Lita, I'd just like to thank you again for joining us during All Things Considered. And I wanted to ask you in the minute or so that we have left, maybe about 30 seconds, if you could just tell us one more time why people should get to WEKU. What is the value?
Well, the value for our community is accurate, up-to-date news and information. There's a huge amount of entertainment value in jazz and all different kinds of bluegrass and classical music as well. But for me, in these times, I really depend on WEKU to keep me up to date with what's happening in Kentucky and in our nation. So we need that accurate information. WEKU is really delivering. So please give today and keep us in great programming at WEKU.
Very well said, Rita. Again, thank you so much for joining us during All Things Considered. On air, online, and on your mobile device at weku.org. This is WEKU Richmond, Lexington, WEKH Hazard, WEKF Corbin, and WEKP Pineville, a broadcast service of Eastern Kentucky University and truly member-supported public radio. So pick up the phone call 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org. Click the red donate button. Become a new member of WEKU. Today help support our mission here at WEKU. And as always, thank you.
Hurricane Sandy is not to be taken for granted. We're looking at record flooding, perhaps breaking historic levels.
After drenching Florida for days, Hurricane Sally heads for the northern Gulf Coast, and Alabama and Mississippi feel its effects.
Today is Tuesday, September 15th, and this is All Things Considered.
I'm Sasha Pfeiffer.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly. Later, whether the deals signed with Israel by two Gulf Arab states really represent a changing Middle East.
They reserved all the money for Israel and the key Arab states and all the vinegar for the Palestinians.
Plus, an architect you may never have heard of, even though he designed nearly 2,000 structures in Los Angeles.
There's definitely a subversive element to him designing these spaces that are for white people, that will always have been designed by him and planned by him.
And a new quarantine album that speaks to a world slowing down.
Now, this news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Jack Spear. Hurricane Sally is expected to hit the Alabama coast tomorrow morning. As Miranda Fulmore of WBHM reports, forecasters say the storm will likely bring historic flooding and 80-mile-per-hour winds.
Hurricane Sally was downgraded this morning to a Category 1 storm. But Brian Hastings with the Alabama Emergency Management Agency says the hurricane still poses a very significant flood risk.
Sally is shaping up to be a very dangerous and historic flooding event. If you're in a low-lying area or a flood-prone area, get to a safer place and higher ground now.
The National Weather Service says Alabama should prepare for heavy storm surge and even isolated tornadoes. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey has activated high water teams with the Alabama National Guard and is urging anyone on the state's coast or in Mobile Bay evacuate immediately. For NPR News, I'm Miranda Fulmore in Birmingham, Alabama.
President Donald Trump presided over a document signing event at the White House today. Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain signing agreements that will formalize the normalization of the Jewish state's warming relations with the two countries, possibly paving the way for a broader Arab-Israeli reconciliation after decades of squabbles. Later speaking to reporters at the White House, Trump indicated more countries will be getting on board.
I call it going around the smart door and coming in a different way. And we have many other countries going to be joining us, and they're going to be joining us soon. We'll have, I think 7 or 8 or 9. We're going to have a lot of other countries joining us, including the big ones.
Today's ceremony is part of an initiative being pushed by the Trump administration as a key foreign policy win during the president's re-election campaign. As Israeli leaders attended a ceremony at the White House to establish diplomatic ties with the two countries, militants in Gaza fired rockets at Israel. Medics say at least 2 Israelis were wounded. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Jerusalem.
Medics say the 2 men had moderate and light shrapnel wounds. The rocket fire hit the southern Israeli town of Ashdod. Video on social media showed a crowd gathered near a shop with shattered glass on the sidewalk. Palestinians oppose the 2 Gulf states' agreements with Israel as abandoning the Palestinians in their conflict with Israel. The Islamic Jihad militant group claimed responsibility for the rocket fire, saying they opposed the normalization deal with Israel. A spokesman for Gaza's ruling Islamist militant group Hamas said Palestinians would continue to struggle for their rights as if the agreements between Israel and the 2 Gulf states did not exist. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Jerusalem.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi now says the body will remain in session until there is a deal on a new coronavirus relief measure. California Democrats' comments come as moderate Democrats signed off on a $1.5 trillion rescue package endorsed by a bipartisan coalition. On Wall Street, the Dow closed up 2 points. This is
And this is WEKU. Thanks for joining us for All Things Considered during our Fall Fund Drive. WEKU by calling 800-621-8890, or you can go online to WEKU.org. I'm Samantha Morrill here this afternoon with Chef Ouida Michael. She's decided to stick around for another half hour, so we're really glad that you decided to do that. It's always nice to have you with us during our pledge drives.
It's wonderful to be here. And you know, Samantha, I was thinking I do have the WEKU app on my phone.
Oh, yeah?
And I've heard you do that several times. Yes, I use it when I'm traveling. I like to listen to WEKU to keep up with what's happening in the central area. So I highly recommend that app on your phone. That way you can always be in touch. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't become a sustaining member of WEKU before, do that during this fall pledge drive, because we're rounding out the year and all those membership dollars really count and really help the station with the programming that they need. So if you have a favorite show like mine's All Things Considered, although I do really love Hidden Brain, just take the time now to give a call to the station and make that first leap into sustaining membership. You won't regret it, I promise you that.
You really won't. Call 800-621-8890 or go online to WEKU.org. We'd like to thank Joe Hinton of Lexington for making a gift to WEKU this evening, and also Kelly Carney. Also from Lexington, thank you, Kelly and Joe, for participating in our Fall Fund Drive. You can join Kelly and Joe and the many others who have made a call or gone online to donate to WEKU during this Fall Fund Drive by calling 800-621-8890. It just takes a few minutes. It's really, really easy to do. And one of my favorite things, that extra minute or so to fill it out, leave us a comment. Love hearing what people appreciate about WEKU. Call 800-621-8890 or go online to WEKU.org. Do it right now before the evening gets away from you and you run out of time before you know it, the pledge drive is over. Call 800-621-8890 or go to WEKU.org. And thanks.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. With Sasha Pfeiffer in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I'm Marie Louise Kelly in Washington. Hurricane Sally has spent much of the day dumping a torrent of rain on the Florida Panhandle and southern Alabama. The storm has moved very little. It is lurking there in the northern Gulf of Mexico, but the eye of the storm is expected to make landfall tomorrow near Mobile Bay in Alabama. NPR's Debbie Elliott joins us now from Gulf Shores, Alabama. Hey there, Deb.
Hi, Mary Louise.
So Gulf Shores, am I right in guessing it is like it sounds, directly on the Gulf?
Trump staged an elaborate ceremony to mark the occasion.
We're here this afternoon to change the course of history. Division and conflict, we mark the dawn of a new Middle East.
Neither on board.
My only concern is that they've hyped and hoopla it to the point where that may not yet be warranted. But if other Arab states join the party, particularly the Saudis, then I think you've got something that will be much more enduring.
The Arab foreign ministers say they are not turning their backs on Palestinians. Emirati Abdullah bin Zayed, speaking through an interpreter, reminded Netanyahu that he agreed to suspend plans to annex parts of the Israeli-occupied West Bank.
Thank you for choosing peace and for halting the annexation of Palestinian territories, a decision that reinforces our shared will to achieve a better future for generations to come.
In this time of a pandemic, the men didn't wear masks as they signed their deals with Israel. They did, however, avoid a public handshake. And while the ceremony was taking place at the White House, Palestinian militants in Gaza fired 2 rockets into southern Israel. Michelle Pellerin, NPR News.
The only thing more stubborn than the ancient trees that grow in Oregon's Opal Creek wilderness may be the man who saved them. George Attia has loved Opal Creek since he spent summers there as a boy. He's lived most of his adult life in the area, about 40 miles east of Salem. During the 1960s and 70s, he made a living mining and logging newer trees. Then timber industry set its sights on Attia's beloved old-growth forest around Opal Creek. Here's Attia speaking on Alton's Custer in 1993.
Go to. There's always
For Betty and others officiating bear the Mountain Memory Gardens Heineman. Visitation Thursday evening 6 to 9 p.m. with additional services at 7 p.m. Thursday. Hyman Funeral Services of Hyman in charge of arrangements.
Consider this afternoon. I'm Samantha Moore here.
Mostly cloudy, high 72. On Friday, a 30% chance of showers, mostly cloudy, high 68. And Saturday, mostly sunny, highs at 67. 5 in our country, 93.5 WAFM.
Mid to upper 50s. 7 o'clock football time in the mountains, we're going to be into about the mid to upper 60s, so definitely cooler Friday night, and especially as we head into the weekend, going to be feeling a lot like fall. And besides the stray rain chances possible on your Thursday, we are going to be on a drier trend, especially heading into the weekend. That 20% is because of the hurricane remnants from Sally that could maybe move into the mountains. Most of us do look to remain on that dry side, and after that, high pressure sets up, bringing us nice weather for the weekend and into the new work week. So we'll drop into the lower 70s for highs by the time we get to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Steve, those overnight lows into the upper 40s to lower 50s. It is going to be a chilly start to your Saturday, Sunday, and even to your Monday, but going to be feeling a lot like fall as the first official day of fall is about a week away. So after we get through tomorrow and Thursday, it's going to be smooth sailing from there.
That's jacket or sweater weather at night coming up. All right, Paige, thank you. Coming up in sports, hear from a Pulaski County dad who made a special trip to Belfry on Friday to watch his son play football.
Sky Alert Weather, sponsored by Community Trust Bank, building communities built on trust.
Your daughter got her learner's permit, so you're getting her favorites at McDonald's. Enjoying the journey together? That's something to value. Right now, mix and match 2 select breakfast favorites for just $2.
We'll hear about another legal battle that
the architect to the
/high impact. Terms and conditions apply.
WMXL Lexington Mix 94.5 HD. Online at mymix945.com. On your phone with the iHeartRadio app. On hundreds of devices like Alexa, Google Home, Xbox, and Sonos. Mix 94.5 in iHeartRadio station.
just...
They taste great and provide fast relief. And now you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Let me try it. Try new Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hi, Saver. Walgreens here. We like the way you save. Take coffee. You know it doesn't have to cost $4 a cup, so you make your own. And co-pays on Medicare Part D. You save up to $5 and get 100 balance rewards points on each prescription when Walgreens is your preferred pharmacy. Save smartly on Med D. Walgreens, trusted since 1901. Copay savings on Tier 1 generic drugs available through select plans that include Walgreens as a preferred pharmacy. Points cannot be earned in Arkansas, New Jersey, or New York. Complete details at walgreens.com/balance.
Young men just don't seem to listen to the radio anymore. They're too busy with their earpods and TV games.
It's iPods and video games?
Whatever. Point is, young men are probably not listening to me right now, but they will listen to you. So I need you to remind them to register with Selective Service when they turn 18. That's an easy way to keep the door open to important benefits like college loans and government jobs. And it's the law. So please, feel free to remind them to go to sss.gov or any post office to register.
I heard that.
I wasn't prepared to be a caregiver to Mom. But a little over a year ago, we realized she couldn't take care of herself without our help. And well, how could I not be there for her? I had no idea how hard it would be, and just what I would need to know. Things I never thought of, like how to improve her mood, and even for me, ways to stay positive. Luckily, I found the Caregiving Resource Center from AARP. It had articles about the basics that got me started, but also information about the hurdles I was facing in this new role. I could even connect with experts and hear from others who had been in my place. I know this road we're on isn't an easy one, but I'm really happy to have the extra help for her and for me.
Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving. Articles, tips, and tools to help you both care for your loved one and care for yourself. This message is brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Do you work in construction, concrete? Are you constantly swinging a hammer or trowel blade? Do you make several trips up and down a ladder? Has your neck or your back got you down? Pain relief can be found with Dr. Smith at Smith Clinic of Chiropractic. Call 743-3617. Our office hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 9 to 5.
A whole lot more communities to expose people that maybe the other architects wouldn't have been interested in.
In 1948, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that racially restrictive covenants were unconstitutional. That decision allowed black families to move into parts of L.A. that had previously shut them out. One of those neighborhoods was Lafayette Square, west of downtown.
I love all the palm trees around here. Different heights and varieties of palm trees. That caught my eye right away.
It's a quiet patch of stately houses. Cypress trees and palm trees loom over wide sidewalks and expansive lawns.
Lafayette Square is like an urban oasis to me.
That's Lauren Smith. Her grandparents had asked Paula Williams to design a home for them here. And now Smith lives in that house. It's a contemporary two-story home with clean lines and a long stone pathway cutting through a neatly trimmed lawn. Smith's grandmother was an activist in the black community, and her grandfather was a physician.
Acquiring land as a brown-skinned black man, no matter if he was a doctor or not, or was qualified or not to get a loan or anything else, was not as easy, right? And sometimes unheard of.
But her grandparents were able to purchase a plot of land with the help of a family friend. And in 1954, Smith's grandparents, Pearl and J.P. Taylor, moved in. That's when the phone calls to Dr. Taylor began.
My grandmother actually recounted that he received calls from people that warned him that black people were moving in. Now, they hadn't met him, so of course they just called and said, Dr. Taylor, you should be aware, be careful, because Negroes are moving into the area.
Wow.
And he said, "Is that so?" and went on about his business.
The house has been in their family ever since, and the architect, Paul R. Williams, eventually designed his own home right around the corner. Smith says seeing successful black families move into beautiful homes like this all around Lafayette Square, that was such an important part of what Paul Williams left behind for generations of black people in LA.
I feel like I'm part of a revolution. You have highly educated, very proud black people. You know, they left the South, and then you come to Los Angeles and you realize you still can't live where you want to live most times. So you decide to create your own. And that's what they did. They forged a way out of no way.
Jonna Ireland, who met Lauren Smith while photographing her house, says that idea, forging a way to elevate the black community, that idea is visible in all of Paul R. Williams' work, even in the homes he designed for white clients.
There's definitely a subversive element to him designing these spaces that are for white people, that will always have been designed by him and planned by him. That means that there is always a degree to which they're black spaces too.
And that is perhaps the most enduring legacy Paul R. Williams built in Los Angeles.
This is NPR News.
And thanks for joining us for All Things Considered on WEKU during our Fall Fund Drive. We're asking you to call 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org and make your pledge of support.
Associated Press News on WEKU is supported by Pizza Hut. There is more pizza information at pizzahut.com.
WEKU is member-supported public radio. That means we rely on listeners to decide what value WEKU has for them and then call in their support with a donation of $5, $10, $20, $200. You can make a monthly sustaining gift. That really helps WEKU to count on and rely on a steady stream that helps us pay our bills and pay for all the programs that we provide to you every weekday and weekend. Thanks for joining us for All Things Considered. We've got the Daily coming up in just a few minutes. You can support programs like these calling 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org. I'm Samantha Morrill here with Chef Wita Michael. And Wita, I know that you really enjoy All Things Considered. Do you ever stick around later and listen to the Daily?
Oh yeah, I mean, the Daily lately has been awesome. They have had the show on Breonna Taylor, and it's been fascinating to hear and learn more about that situation. But the Daily is fantastic. I feel like the reporting is really edgy, but more importantly, it's like deep dive that you really need. So it's like they go, it's beyond just regular reporting, way down to the more interesting parts of the story that you normally never get to hear because they take just one topic at a time and really for it. And I love that show.
I completely agree with you. They do. They take a story that perhaps might get 30 seconds on TV or maybe during All Things Considered a bigger chunk of time, but they spend almost half an hour on one subject every day and really take a really close look at it. I completely agree with you.
I've learned a lot.
Go ahead.
I've learned a lot from that show, just about, it's a nice companion piece to the All Things Considered show because they might start, or that one, there might be a small headline in that news broadcast, like you were just saying, Samantha, and then the Daily will take that and blow the whole thing apart and really give you the background information of all aspects of and different perspectives on that show that I've really enjoyed. I love that show.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'm glad to hear that you stick around for the Daily after All Things Considered. If you are like yourself, like myself and Wita, joining us for All Things Considered and sticking around for that deeper dive for the Daily, then pick up the phone and call 800-621-8890. Go online to weku.org. Let us know that you're here for that programming. These shows cost money, and we rely on listener donors to help provide the vast majority of our revenue streams when it comes to paying for these programs, keeping the lights on, and people here in the studios making sure that we stay on the air. The number to call is 800-621-8890, or you can go online to weku.org. We're going to take a quick check of news headlines with WEKU's Stu Johnson.
With WEKU News, I'm Stu Johnson. Kentucky's local election officials have begun submitting plans for how they will conduct in-person voting during the upcoming general election, but only plans from 26 of the state's 120 counties have been approved so far. Jared Deering is the executive.
We absolutely do. Follow the example of my friends Bill and Leslie Penn from the Midway. Call in with your pledge, and if you can pledge $7 a month, we are going to send you a WUKY fantastic face mask. If you can bump up to $10 a month, you'll get 2 face masks. And these are going to be collector's items for generations to come. Wear them today, save them for tomorrow. But call now and pledge your support.
That's absolutely right. Call 800-621-8890. Go online to weku.org. We thank you so much for joining us for All Things Considered. We're all going to be listening as the daily comes on in just a few moments here, and then another hour of All Things Considered this evening at 7 o'clock. So super grateful that you could be with us for all of this today. And we're still asking you, the listener out there, joining us for all of this great programming this evening, to call 800-621-8890. Go online to weku.org. Become a sustaining member at $10 a month and get yourself 2 of the WEKU face masks. 800-621-8890 or online at weku.org. And thank you.
The Daily is supported by Fidelity Wealth Management, where advisors work with their clients to develop flexible investment strategies that evolve as their needs change. Fidelity.com/wealth. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. And by Twilio, a customer engagement platform used by millions of developers, enabling businesses to reinvent how they connect with their customers. Twilio, it's time to build. More information is available at twilio.com.
From the New York Times, I'm Megan Toohey. This is The Daily. Today, as wildfires continue to rip through parts of the West, Oregon is seeing unprecedented destruction. My colleague, Jack Healy, talks to those living in its path. It's Tuesday, September 15th. So, Jack, tell us what's been happening in Oregon.
Unrelenting fires continuing to rage throughout Oregon.
Well, 1 million acres of Oregon have burned in recent weeks.
With the flames comes that toxic smoke that's blanketed the West Coast, smothering several major cities.
As incredibly dry conditions, exacerbated by the effects of climate change, combined with a really historic and devastating windstorm to create some of the worst fire conditions that people here have seen in years, if not generations.
Nearly 36 wildfires, so widespread they can be seen from space.
There are 30 different fires burning.
In Oregon, officials are bracing for a mass fatality incident.
They have killed 10 people and displaced tens of thousands of people across the state, from just outside of Portland all the way down to southern Oregon.
This could be the greatest loss of lives and property due to wildfire in our state's history.
The damage is widespread and the scale is just absolutely mind-boggling. So I flew into Portland last Thursday, and when I arrived, the plane touched it down through a thick, impenetrable haze of smoke that has actually grounded a lot of flights and prevented travel in and out of the area pretty severely.
Wow.
So right after Portland, as I drove into the fire zone through tiny little towns that were being evacuated and places that were smoldering, one of the things that I kept hearing from residents, whether it was people in Portland or fire officials who were on the front lines of this, or people whose houses were being actively evacuated, was this. Everybody just kept saying the entire state is burning. The scope of these fires is so widespread that it's hard to conceive of what 1 million acres really looks like. I talked to one Red Cross volunteer who had been trying to put people up in hotels. And one of the challenges that they had been facing is that as hotel rooms fill up around the area where the fires are, they were trying to put people farther out in different towns. But the problem they were running into is that they were encountering refugees from other fires the farther out they put people. So it was like these disasters were sort of spreading and colliding as you went south from Portland to Salem to Eugene to Medford. As I'm driving, I have the air conditioning blasting and trying to recirculate air through the cab of this white Toyota pickup truck that I've rented to get around. And I'm wearing an N95 mask inside the car in an attempt to keep as much of this fine particulate matter that just fills the air from entering my lungs. And as you push farther into the areas that have been burned, you start to see telltale signs of what the fire has wrought along the roadside. You see fields that look like Hawaiian black sand beaches because the fires have just scoured them the color of charcoal. You see areas that are totally unburnt, and then you turn a corner and there's what's left of a house, just this sort of skeleton of twisted metal and a single chimney standing up like a solitary soldier standing guard or something. And things get worse and worse the farther east you go, where these little communities of retirees and recreational enthusiasts and summertime campers that were just really devastated. Hey, how are you, sir? Good. Hey, I'm a newspaper reporter covering the wildfires. Okay. When I pulled into the tiny town of Gates. Are you guys sort of part of the crews of residents who are just like trying to... This is my house. Protect your places? That's my house. It's my friend Sean. He's here for the cause. Sean, hey, I'm Jack. Mike, great to meet you. I met a little cluster of neighbors who had decided to stick it out inside of the fire zone, you know, inside of this part of the area that had been evacuated and cleared out, because they were determined to try to save their homes.
And if we didn't come back in here, my house would be gone because there's fires going around that we put out.
Oh, so you actually came back in and...
I've been here since then. I've been here the whole time.
No kidding. That's amazing, Jared.
I bought the house in November, man. I've been trying to stay here, but I got a wife calling me at home going, get out, and Darren's staying.
They were taking a break from days of driving up and down the roads.
So you think it just jumped from house to house to house?
Yeah.
And I was there with other people for 11 hours trying to put that town out.
Looking for little spot fires or smoldering areas of the woods when I got there. And they were actually cracking open a couple of beers and waiting for another couple of neighbors to return to their houses with a refill of water supplies from one of the local fire departments.
Yeah, I should take it down to my house. It's 3 houses down. I'll tell you right where the fire stopped.
Oh, sure. They walked me around the back of their homes and showed me the hillsides right immediately behind their houses.
This was on fire.
This is crazy.
When I came back, this was on fire. We didn't come back.
I just want the 8-piece
swallowed up their houses.
bucket meal.
Their house is gone.
They've also with shotguns and sidearms. They say would you like that original crispy?
Crispy, please.
And outsiders coming in to rob their places.
Mashed potatoes and gravy, coleslaw, mashed potatoes for your side. Mashed potatoes, coleslaw, and corn. Did you say corn? Corn, mashed potatoes, and coleslaw.
Which is like...
Coleslaw, mashed potatoes and gravy, and corn? Yes.
There's no one there.
And
is that all for you? That's all.
$21.84. Is that a real threat at this time?
Well, to a certain extent, yeah. What has happened in some cases is that there have been some reports and arrests of looting, but what's also happened, though, is that there have been a bunch of rumors and sort of swarms of misinformation circulating on social media about some alleged organized effort by Antifa to set fires or carry out sort of organized sprees of robberies in communities that have been evacuated, kind of really fan the flames of a climate of fear right now, as people try to wait for some sort of semblance of order or normalcy, really, to be restored.
So it sounds like these guys feel like they are caught between the danger of the fire itself and the potential fear of someone breaking into their homes. And they have decided that staying and protecting their homes is worth the risk of the fire.
I think that is the essential calculation for so many people. It's, do you risk your house burning down, or do you risk just not knowing what's happening at what's probably your biggest economic asset and the source of so many years of work? Or do you leave and stay safe personally? People across the state are making that individual calculation for themselves.
The apocalypse, man, the whole state burned down. I've never seen anything like it. I've been on 1,000 acres right service, and I've never seen anything like it.
We'll be right back.
The Daily is supported by Progressive Insurance, offering coverage options as unique as your business. Progressive covers companies of many sizes and specialties. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. And by C3.ai. C3.ai software enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale, solving previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at C3.ai. For everything you need to know about the most important stories of the day, The Daily with Michael Barbaro, produced by the New York Times. Learn more at nytimes.com/The Daily.
Thanks for joining us for The Daily during our Fall Fund Drive on WEKU. You can support WEKU by calling 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org.
WEKU is supported by Kentucky Humanities, presenting Through the Lens, Campaign Photography in a Digital World, a virtual discussion of the role photography plays in political campaigns. On Wednesday, September 23rd at 7 p.m. at transy.edu/LENS.
Every dollar contributed to WEKU goes straight back into our programming. If you support programs and enjoy
Can I have a
programs
barbecue?
like The Daily on WEKU and All Things Considered coming up at 7 o'clock, then pick up the phone and call 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org. Just takes a few minutes to fill out a few fields of information, and you'll know you've done your part to support WEKU.
I spoke with my colleague, Jack Healy, a national correspondent for The Times, who has been covering the wildfires in California and Oregon.
Can I have barbecue, please, and a plate?
Barbecue,
Yes, thank
Where do you
you.
go next?
3.
Well, I went to the Black Bear Lodge, a little motel in Salem, where evacuees have been staying for the past week. And there I met Travis and Jane James. You guys want to chat out here? Okay, great. And they are from the tiny little communities of Detroit and Idana. And Detroit suffered probably some of the worst devastation in the fires outside of Portland. About 70% of the businesses and homes in this lakeside resort town were destroyed, including cafes, a motel, a little restaurant, a market, and even the city hall was destroyed.
Wow.
The town was basically wiped off the map.
And what did Travis and Jane tell you?
Well, Travis and Jane had a pretty harrowing story of escape.
Didn't want to leave.
Yeah, that was a mistake thinking that I could save the house. They had been hoping that they could stay and protect their house. But around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, getting to be way too dangerous.
Thank you.
Flames were raining onto their house, as well as burning pine cones and other pieces of ash and all this other debris that was rising on the column of heat from this fire and just being thrown for miles.
When that happened, we got the code 3, get out now.
How did it arrive? Did your phones go off? Okay.
Yeah, it came on as an alert.
They finally got the alert. They ran out of the house and started to drive down the mountain to try to get to safety. But what happened is, as they're driving through these walls of fire, trees are falling around them. They're exploding as they drive.
Yeah, we went around. A tree had fallen down on the highway. We went around it. And as soon as we went around it, the rock slide hit us.
And
then
their car smashes into a rock slide, and they get a flat tire.
So what happens then? The tire blows?
In the middle of a forest fire.
Wow. And so how do you take the tire off?
Yeah, we didn't.
Well, they had no choice but to turn around and head back to Detroit, where they had just come from.
Had to put everything back, pull the dogs back in, and just ride on the road another 7 miles back to Detroit.
And the entire forest is basically exploding around them.
So what do they do once they get back to Detroit, which is on fire?
Which is on fire. So Travis and Jane and about 70 other refugees from this fire ended up taking shelter at a boat dock that was sort of a clearing, an area that was, not immediately surrounded by trees. Then they were going to wait there until some National Guard helicopters could land and evacuate them by air.
They had to cut a tree because we were surrounded. We couldn't get out, so they were going to bring, they had 3 helicopters hovering.
They had Payhawks up from the National place right down here in Salem.
Wow.
They were on station for about 4.5 hours before they had to abort because of fuel.
Yeah, because they couldn't come down.
So they were just kind of like hovering and hovering.
And they couldn't, the wind was going 65 miles an hour, so they couldn't land.
They waited there for hours, but those helicopters could never come in because the winds were just too rough.
And what is happening with the fire during all of this?
I mean, the fire is just burning all around them. Basically, they're getting covered in debris and ash, and, as Jane said, we were surrounded. We couldn't get out.
How many people would you say were there?
When we left, it was 40 vehicles and 78 people.
Wow.
They just kept coming in from all over because nobody could get out. They just kept coming in and coming in.
Wow.
And so what do they do? What is the plan?
Well,
They were going to move us all down to the docks.
Yeah, they told us to grab.
Surround the fire trucks around us, water trucks, and put a big water barrier.
the plan was to essentially make a last stand against the fire, which would try to create a sort of wall or barrier between them and the fire, and that they would spray as much water between the people and the encroaching flames as possible and just try to hold out as long as they could. But ultimately what happened is that...
Then they got an okay to leave, so we all lined up, followed the fire trucks out.
Someone with the Forest Service was able to find another way out of there, and they found an evacuation route, and they assembled a convoy of fire trucks, RVs, pickup trucks, and they headed out of there on a narrow little road with, you know, smoke and flames just roaring up on either side of it.
And while it was fire on the left-hand side,
Trees were falling down.
and we're going.
We had to stop a couple times.
So the fire department could get out.
They're out there chainsawing. Wow. Burning trees. They're chainsawing and pulling them out with their trucks so we could keep going. That happened 2 or 3 times.
And during that drive, they sort of crept along and tried to stay together as best they could so that people would not get detoured into other fire zones, because as they are driving, they are skirting along the edge of another massive fire that is burning just to the north of the one that had just consumed their community.
It was just a last minute make or break thing. It was like, we got one shot to get out of here. It's on fire, but we're going to go. So we went.
Fire department, and the fire, I'm going to tell you, Idana, Detroit Fire Department, they,
Bunch of studs.
oh my gosh, they get so many kills from us.
Wow.
They had no heroes until that day.
Jane was still really distraught and really traumatized by this.
But I went into complete meltdown.
When we talked, it had been 5 days or so, and just thinking about that trip was still something that brought her to tears.
Worried that you were going to die? Yeah.
It was... When you see death, it humbles you even more than you are. All I did the whole time was just cry.
Wow.
I could not stop crying. He kept trying. I'm like, I can't. It was just way too much.
And so what is their plan now? What will they do once the fires stop?
Well, their house survived. They were some of the lucky ones. And their plan is to go back.
Are you guys going to go back? I mean, and go back and live there? And
Yes.
go back to, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me why.
It's beautiful up there. It's God's country up there. I could sit outside for hours just watching the wildlife.
Yeah.
Chipmunks and squirrels.
We got 3 families of chipmunks. We got a koala bear squirrel. We got chub.
I think for a lot of the people that I've talked to, there is a certain amount of wishful thinking, hoping that this fire was just some sort of historically aberrant event, that the winds that ignited these firestorms won't flare up again, that somehow things will, get better. But at a certain point, I think others are starting to, wonder whether they can just sort of live with the increased risk of living in a fire zone. Because if you look outside your window across the West, you sort of all are living in some kind of fire zone. Even if you live in San Francisco or LA or Seattle, Portland, you're miles away from any place, any hillside that's going to burn down and surround your family. You're still socked in by smoke, and you're still contending with incredibly dirty and in some cases dangerous air conditions. And honestly, I'm one of them. I live in Colorado, and I live on the side of a hill in a pretty wildfire-prone part of Colorado. And, I know that climate change is real, that the risks of these fires are getting worse as hotter temperatures dry out the brush, and as weather patterns shift. But I think that there is a certain love and commitment that people have to these communities in the mountains, in forests, that they're not willing to give up. Not to mention the fact that for so many people, you're sort of locked into your home. A lot of people don't have the ease of just, pulling up stakes and leaving. It's what so many of the people in Detroit or Idana or Gates had invested their entire lives and savings and a lifetime of work into. And to leave, even when the fire is banging down your door and climate change is screaming its presence, to leave it's a really difficult thing.
Well, thank you, Jack.
Thank you so much.
Jack Healy is reporting on the wildfires on the West Coast for The Times.
The Daily is supported by Indigo Ag, believing that a healthier planet begins with healthier farms. By cultivating an innovative community of businesses, farmers, and everyday advocates, agriculture can be reimagined for the benefit of both people and planet. Learn more at indigoag.com. And by OneDrop, the app that can help people get healthy and stay ahead of their diabetes. OneDrop combines personal coaching, curated content, and diabetes supply delivery at getOneDrop.com. And by American Public Media.
The Daily is powered by the journalism of the New York Times and is distributed by APM, American Public Media. You can go deeper into the stories you hear on The Daily at nytimes.com/thedaily. That's it for the The Daily, I'm Megan Toohey. See you tomorrow.
The time is 6:59. Thanks for joining us on WEKU during our Fall Fund Drive. You can support WEKU by calling 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org.
WEKU is supported by Hicks and Funson and attorneys Greg Funson, Kenny Human, Kayla Combs, and Shannon Church. Hicks and Funson is a Central Kentucky personal injury and immigration law firm proud to support fact-based reporting on WEKU. More information at 859-777-7000.
On air, online, and on your mobile device at weku.org. This is WEKU Richmond, Lexington, WEKH Hazard, WEKF Corbin, and WEKP Pineville. You can support WEKU by calling 800-621-8890 or go to weku.org.
Look at this many fires on the landscape. We're doing what we can with what we have.
In Oregon, they're trying to deal with smoke and fight the fires and assess damage and get people to safety all at once.
It's Tuesday, September 15th, and this is All Things Considered from NPR News.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Sasha Pfeiffer. Ahead this hour, the president of the Navajo Nation on how they're beating back the coronavirus.
Also, why the pandemic may make freelancing the norm in some professions.
Freelancing is feast or famine, so it kind of comes in waves, and I know at some point there'll be less of it. So I'm looking at that, sort of what to do and how to sort of make it work as a business.
And Facebook's new initiative on climate change.
It provides a simple, easy to find repository for authoritative information about what is happening to our climate and how it's changing.
That's ahead. First, the news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Jack Spear. Over 16,000 firefighters are continuing to battle more than 24 major wildfires in California. Smoke along the entire West Coast has made the air unhealthy for millions of people. As Paul Lancourt from member station KQED reports, there's some relief in sight for San Francisco Bay Area residents.
Today is the 30th consecutive unhealthy air day in the Bay Area, over twice the previous record for consecutive unhealthy air alerts. However, increasing winds mean the smoke is diminishing, and officials expect to lift the advisory tomorrow. Over the past month, fires in California have killed 25 people, destroyed 4,200 structures, and set records for air pollution in several areas of the state. While some residents will get a breather, the uptick in winds, combined with continued dry conditions, have prompted an extreme fire danger warning for parts of Northern California. A reminder that fire season here is far from over. For NPR News, I'm Paul Lancourt.
With Hurricane Sally slowing to a crawl off the Gulf Coast, officials are telling residents in low-lying areas to get out now. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey says residents who can need to move out of areas near Mobile Bay along the state's coast. While Sally's weakened somewhat to a Category 1 storm with 80-mile-per-hour winds, Dan Brown, a hurricane specialist at the National Weather Service, says Sally's slow forward speed, just around 2 miles an hour, means the storm will be picking up lots of water and generating potentially life-threatening surf.
We are expecting a storm surge as high as 4 to 7 feet, and then the rainfall amounts could be on the order of 10 to 20 inches with isolated amounts of 30 inches along the coast of the Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, and southeastern Mississippi.
Sally's forecast to make landfall late tonight or early tomorrow near the Mississippi-Alabama state line. The Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into the book written by former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. NPR's Kerry Johnson reports the probe appears to be examining whether the memoir contains classified information.
A federal grand jury in Washington has issued criminal subpoenas to John Bolton's literary agency and his publisher, Simon & Schuster. NPR confirmed the subpoenas, which were first reported by the New York Times. The investigation marks a big turn in the government's legal fight against Bolton. The Justice Department sued to block his book in June. A judge denied that request, but said Bolton had gambled with national security and that he may have exposed himself to criminal liability. President Trump has tweeted that Bolton, quote, should be in jail for disseminating classified information. Authorities are trying to seize the profits from his book, The Room Where It Happened. Bolton's lawyers say the White House is retaliating for political reasons. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
Stocks gained ground on Wall Street. The Dow up 2 points. The Nasdaq rose 133. This is NPR.
With WEKU News, I'm Stu Johnson. Governor Andy Beshear has amended one of his coronavirus restrictions, allowing bars and restaurants to stay open until midnight instead of 11 p.m. Capitol reporter Ryland Barton has more.
The change comes as Kentucky continues to record an elevated number of coronavirus cases, but the state's positivity rate has ticked back down to 3.97%. Beshear cited sports coming back in his rationale for allowing bars to stay open later. The NFL and college football resumed last weekend.
That was a specific request from those in the restaurant industry. We thought it was reasonable.
Beshear's new order allows bars to make last call at 11 p.m. and close no later than midnight. There were 745 new positive coronavirus cases in Kentucky on Tuesday, 95 of which were among children under 18 years old. There were 9 new deaths, bringing the state's total to 1,074. I'm Ryland Barton in Louisville.
Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher says the city has agreed to a settlement with the family of Breonna Taylor that includes a $12 million payment and police reforms after the black woman was fatally shot by police who burst into her home at night. Taylor's death sparked months of protests in Louisville and calls nationwide for the officers to be criminally charged. The state's attorney general is investigating police actions in the March 13th fatal shooting. And Keeneland officially announced today the upcoming fall meet at the historic Lexington track will be run with relatively few spectators. This announcement follows a similar one this past weekend about no fans for the early November Breeders' Cup Championships at Keeneland. Keeneland said only a limited number of participants and essential personnel will be allowed to attend the live meet October 2nd through the 24th. Participants include those with a competing horse, including a limited number of owners and trainers. Keeneland also will allow limited access to sponsors, box holders, and club members.
It's 6 minutes past the hour. Thanks for joining us on WEKU for All Things Considered during our Fall Fun Drive. A reminder, just call 800-621-8890 or go online to weku.org. Just takes a few minutes to fill out a little bit of information, and before you know it, you're all done. You've done your part to help support WEKU and all of the great programming that we offer you. Call 800-621-8890 or .org.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Sasha Pfeiffer in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly in Washington. Nearly 24 people are missing as more than 35 wildfires continue to burn across the state of Oregon. Damage assessments are trickling in. In some cases, the firefighters themselves are discovering their homes have been destroyed. Some of the worst damage has been in the city of Eugene. So joining us now from Eugene is Rachel McDonald, news director at the member station there, KLCC. Hey, Rachel. Hi. So give us a snapshot. There are so many fires burning in the state right now. What kind of progress have firefighters been able to make?
Well, they've been able to make some progress. The bigger fires, which stretch from just outside Portland all the way south to the California border, they're at between 5 and 15% containment, so it's progress, but slow progress.
Mm-hmm.
And